Painting nurse stories, the time I almost passed out. It wasn't the time of cholera. Instead, it was the time of the swine flu. I arrived for my clinical at a hospital on the far north side of town and received the direction that day that I would be in the emergency department. I had been sick for days leading up to the clinical, but our instructors made it clear clinical could not be missed and could not be made up. Clinical was graded as pass-fail, so if I wanted to pass and subsequently pass the lecture half of the class, I would need to pull it together and attend. Upon arriving, I felt the fast pace and high pressure of the emergency setting and was quickly distracted, listening to my preceptor for the day and whatever tasks I was delegated. When it came time to draw blood and start a peripheral IV, I collected the needed supplies and headed to the bedside to watch a nurse complete the procedure, while directing me to hand supplies over as needed. As I stood there, next to the nurse towards the end of the patient's bed, I started to feel hot all over and some lightheadedness that soon turned to nausea. When I looked down at the blood siphoning from the patient into the many tubes, my vision darkened, and I abruptly turned and walked out of the curtained area without a word, hearing the nurse's words cut off, "Where are you?" I took 2 steps before I could no longer see, my vision fully black, and I sat down quickly on my butt in the center of the hallway and rested my head on my knees. I heard my instructor call out my name and ask what I was doing. I responded in a voice barely loud enough to carry down the hall. I thought I was going to pass out and didn't want to fall. Several footsteps approached before a woman's voice I didn't recognize harshly uttered, "You can't sit here," before grabbing my arm and forcing me to stand. My vision came back in patches, still dark and fuzzy on the edges, but as she directed me to go to the nearest empty stretcher in a room right off the hallway, I was able to make out where to go. As I walked over, I diverted instead to the trash can and promptly vomited. The woman, who I realized was a nurse, and my instructor helped me to lay down on the stretcher, taking my blood pressure and beginning to interrogate me about if I was pregnant. "There's no way," I responded, absolutely mortified to be having this discussion in front of one of my teachers, but the nurse just squinted her eyes at me, clearly not believing my answer, offering that we could do a urine test. It wasn't until my instructor interjected with, "Haven't you been sick?" that I was able to explain yes, I had been quite ill leading up to the clinical, but I knew I couldn't miss the day. That seemed to satisfy the nurse, who then filled up a large pitcher of water for me to drink and directed me to sit at the nurse's desk and not leave my chair under any circumstances short of a fire evacuation. I stayed there for an hour, having to explain over and over to each and every person who approached me to help them with a task or to grab supplies for them that I was under strict instruction to not leave my chair, which always gained funny looks, but I tried as much as possible to not tell people that I was sick. I didn't feel any better, and my instructor sent me home for the day. But after realizing there was no one who could drive me, debated allowing another student to take me home. I lived so far away, though, that I didn't want to make another student miss on a whole day of experience, and so my instructor made me swear that I would pull over if I felt dizzy at all on the road, since I would be driving myself. I felt awful, and after walking through the parking lot, I sat in my car for another hour before I finally felt well enough to drive. I had been so worried about missing the clinical and needing to make it up somehow, but my instructor told me before I left, "You don't need to make it up. You can miss a day. You are sick." And that has stuck with me whenever I experience guilt over calling out because I am sick, or when I take a call from an employee calling out as well. Thanks for listening. Follow for more. Have you ever been sick?